Is this art? This is Chicago model Josie Fox, and it's actually painted. It's called The Tale of Two Wolves. It's an old Indian painting about good and bad, evil and light. And the Indian saying goes, which wolf wins to a young son? Well, it's the one you feed. Is this art? This is Chicago model, and it's a Day of the Dead painting. It's all airbrushed using graffiti-style spray paint and spray cans. What about this? This is the first image you see when you walk through the double doors of an old high school. Here's a better image. It shows the city and represents the community of where the kids were from. You see, when I was a kid and growing up, I've always felt embarrassed about the kind of art that I did and the kind of work that I did. But why? Because today in our society, there's a stigma that anything that's spray painted or airbrushed is automatically graffiti. And what's graffiti? It's vandalism, right? Graffiti's bad. It's bad for communities. But I believe that it's just art. You see, airbrushes, graffiti cans are just a tool, just like anything else. Just use spray and air to paint images. I believe that art can change the world, and images can be more powerful than words. You see, my name is Gonzalez. I'm an airbrush artist, and those are my tools, spray cans and graffiti. But those are just tools, aren't they? I believe that images can change the way that we view education. Images can change the way that we look at the communities and bring art into communities. I believe that images can be more powerful than words. So I want to tell you guys a story. And like all great stories, it was a story about love. When I was 12 years old, all I wanted to do was become an artist. Like, that was my goal. I just wanted to show my art to everybody and anybody that wanted to listen. So I was kind of like that annoying, pesky kid that kept on saying, check this out, check this out. So I was fortunate enough to receive a scholarship through the Munster Community Art Program. And to me, that was like magic. I mean, it was my Willy Wonka ticket. I was a 12-year-old kid. It was divine intervention. It couldn't be anything else. So from there on, I knew that I had to become an artist, and that's what I did. I persevered at it. At that time, I was young, and I wasn't yet tainted by society's viewpoints that this should be art, this is bad art, or at the very worst, that it's no art at all. I was young and idealistic, but I kept on persevering. So I can remember the first public art piece I did as a student, and I can remember the first airbrush I received. I mean, it was this shiny metal object in a box. It was this cool, awesome tool that you can paint on cars, skate decks, canvases. It can go on any surface. It was so versatile. To me, there was two types of art in the world. There was this amazing airbrush tool, and then everything else. Nothing else mattered. You see, I can remember the first project I did when I was in high school. I was 17 years old, and I was inspired by the ceiling tiles painted in front of my art class. So every senior student got to paint their own tile. And I always wanted to do one. It was like leaving a legacy behind. So by the time I got to paint my own tile, they're already all taken. But I was persistent. I was this buggy kid. Well, can I paint a tile? I said, can I paint one? Our teacher's like, what? Well, Diego, you can't paint a tile, but if you stop bugging me, I'll let you paint the wall outside. I'm like, heck, I get out of class. I don't have to do this normal assignments other kids did. So needless to say, I took a lot longer than I usually would. Kind of stretched it out a little bit. So I painted this mural outside the classroom, and to my surprise, something magical happened. Kids liked it, students liked it, teachers liked it, they talked about it. Kids would say, fellow classmates would be like, hey, I like walking down this way, that hallway, because I passed your mural and it makes me happy. There was something happening in the cities. A revolution was happening. In the streets of LA, in the streets of Brooklyn, in the streets of London, England, street artists and graffiti artists were taking their work and moving them from remote places like abandoned cars and buildings and putting them in the most trafficked places in the country. And if you put your art, if you're a street artist, and you put it in the most trafficked place, you received cred, or street cred. And the artist that had the most cred, does anybody know who Banksy is? You heard of him. Well, if people haven't heard of Banksy, he put his art in the middle of streets of LA, in the middle of Times Square. And his art was changing. It wasn't just graffiti anymore. He shared his ideas that commented on political views and satirical views of the world. He shared his art with everybody. And it was cool. Banksy was this cool artist that, for example, he had pictures of George Bush coming out of this huge helicopter, this military vehicle, and then him holding a sign saying applause. It's ridiculous, isn't it? But we forget as a society that those ideas are ridiculous. Art lets us remember that. He has a picture of a dove flying over, representing peace with a bulletproof vest strapped on. So he was this cool artist. Andy Warhol said, art is dead. Well, if art is dead, then we have to be Frankenstein. We have to get it out of the galleries and just put it in the cities too, so everybody can see. Banksy said, the people that truly deface our cities are the big companies that scroll slogans across bus stops and billboards and ads. People think that nothing has the right to exist in a community unless it makes a profit. And they make you feel bad and inadequate unless you buy their stuff. Anybody that puts something in front of you and doesn't ask you whether you like it or whether you want to see it or not, well, that place is yours. Reuse it, rearranging it, take it back. Asking permission is like asking to keep a rock somebody threw at your head. So, but what does this all have to do with education? Well, that's the question that found me. About 3 years ago, in 2012, a teacher asked me to paint some murals inside her classroom in a high school, a government facility. I'm like, hey, I get to deface public property again. What a great idea. So I did. And I would work at night, like a crazy artist, right? Madman. So I'd paint these murals, and at night it would be this white wall, nothing there, and then I'd work hours and hours on end. And the next day, another piece would show up like this. And they would have tiny little phrases like, where are you going? Science lets you explore. Imagination. And then like a mad scientist down the hallway. And then the art teacher came to me. She said, Diego, you know what the kids are saying about your art? I'm like, I don't know, maybe they think it's cool. They say to them, it's like magic. From a perspective of a kid, it wasn't just graffiti or vandalism. It was something that made them happy. It was something that made them feel good about themselves. When we ask, and I ask a lot of people as an artist, what is the benefits of public art? All of us, how does it help us? Think about it. How does art help you? Well, it's hard, isn't it? It's hard to describe how art helps you. You see, the benefit of public art isn't conscious or literal. It's something that's more unconscious. And what it does is it raises the energy of a community. It asks you whether you want to be part of this community, whether this represents you or how you feel about the community. And also, art is an influencer. How many people here like music? I bet you all could probably name your top 3 or 10 bands off the top of your head or musicians. Well, art is just like that. It could influence you and change the way you look at something. And how does this, though, affect education, too? Well, that's something that kind of also found me. I'm an artist, right? And my brother is a computer scientist. He's like the other end of the spectrum. I'm like right here, and he's like the super brainiac. But we all talk about the kind of work that we do. And in his programming domain, there's something called the broken window theory. Well, the broken window theory states that if you let small problems and bugs go in the system, and small transgressions go, they lead to more heinous problems in the system. Little bugs can cause great errors and destroy entire systems. Well, 2 researchers did a research study, and they put an abandoned car in Brooklyn. And they wanted to see how the environment affected the area. So they left it there. And they left it there for weeks on end. And what would happen to it? Would it be destroyed, vandalized, or whatnot? Well, weeks went by. Nothing happened. Then one researcher actually broke out the front windshield. Bam. Guess what happened? Within the matter of 48 hours, in hours, the whole car was, the wheels are taking off, the battery was stolen, it was defaced, it was destroyed. You see, the point is, environment matters. Until somebody said, I don't care about that car, I don't care about the place that I'm from, nothing happened. But until that happened, all hell broke loose. You see, there's a point to this, that they actually did studies too in schools. They started cleaning up broken windows and glass, they started painting on the walls, and it actually affected the way the students cared about the place they were from. That they started appreciating it more. They had higher attendance rates and things like that. And actually, students not only liked it for being a pretty picture, but they did something else. Guess what? Next class. They started painting their own murals. They unconsciously started doing things in the community, believe it or not, that weren't just boring community service. They were just doing something fun, and they're engaging in learning art, and they made their own murals. Andy Warhol, Pablo Picasso, And they had little phrases and sayings in there. And it was really cool and really great. Art, I'm an artist. And art is so different in learning and doing it than anything else. How do we learn in school? You get an A, you do good, you get a good grade, right? And that's good and positive. Well, art is, there's no A, there's no right, there's no wrong. There's just art. You make it, and you persevere. Well, there is a study that's called the Studio Habits of the Mind that teaches you to persist and persevere. Everyone here is here, and they're all of you are really accomplished people, but how did you become accomplished? You learned that trial and error, right? So you persevered. You kept on pushing forward. Well, art teaches you that, and not a lot of people realize that, how important it is. So you see, there also is a rich history of art in our cities and our communities. In the 1920s, U.S. citizens were actually bombarded by ads and advertisements, and they're actually taking back their public spaces, going into places, people like me, people like you, that were defacing public property because they didn't want to be seen by billboards and have these billboard ads bombarding them when people didn't have much money. In the 40s, the greatest generation ever known was saying, I'm here and I exist, writing Kill Where is Here. All of you know this image, don't you? This image is iconic. But did you know this is actually painted by a graffiti artist, a street artist named Shepard Fairey? And he's proof, as a case study, that one single person with little or no political ties, with little or no influence or money as a person, could actually change and affect the democratic election. It can create a revolution, an impact in the streets of Tunisia, North Egypt, North Ireland. They're actually cutting off all internet connections, all lines, and they're saying that you couldn't use your cell phone, you couldn't use your Facebook, but that's how they were actually communicating. So citizens were taking to the streets. They're bringing their art to the streets. People that weren't even artists were making murals, and then they were spreading like wildfire because they're saying, I believe what you believe, and they kept on reproducing these images. And it was powerful. It was showing that art can actually not just be graffiti, art can not just be vandalism, but it could be a tool for mass communication, a tool to inspire and change and revolutionize an area. So, art can change the way we view education. Art can change the way that we view cities and the impact of society. Whether you're a doctor, a lawyer, a mother, or a father, art is really beneficial and it can help you. You know, I always urge people not only to share arts and to support it, but also create it yourselves, because when you're doing that, you're constantly learning new habits and learning to expand your mind. This is a beautiful world, and art makes it just a little more beautiful. Banksy said, imagine a city that just, where graffiti wasn't illegal, where the walls were painted with millions of colors and tiny little phrases, where standing at a bus stop was never boring. Well, imagine a city that felt like a party and everybody was invited, not just the big barons of business and company. Imagine a city like that and stop leaning on the wall. It's wet. And that's an idea worth sharing. Thank you.